Did you put it back on?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, you remember the temple we lost? It is not to be forgotten. And while we don't have sacrifices now, our prayer, our tefillah, that replaces the sacrifices.
I'm sorry, excuse me, the first or the second loss of the temple?
Well, we're the second.
But it's all inclusive.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, after the first temple was 70 years when the second temple was rebuilt. After the second temple was destroyed, you had a period of about 60 years, and then you have this Bar Kokhba rebellion led by Bar Kokhba in about 132 of the Common Era, and there's a lot of messianic fervor that the third temple is going to be rebuilt. They're moderately successful for a period of time. They start minting coins. They ultimately get decimated by the Romans. And after that defeat, perhaps even more so than the destruction of 70 CE, it becomes clear that this temple is not going to be rebuilt for a long time, if ever. And the rabbis really, in great earnest, take on the project of reinventing Judaism.
But that's a significant dispute from the time of the patriarchs to the collapse of the second temple. Is an enormous gap of time and literature that has been collected.
It's an enormous gap of time. However, the temple sacrifices were around for a long time. They have biblical roots. So the rabbis are disputing which ancient source is the source of this prayer that they are promulgating for the Jewish people. So one rabbi says it's the Avot, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And if we just skip down a little bit to the end of the fourth line, it says Abraham instituted the morning tefillah, as it says, and Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he had stood. We're told actually on multiple occasions about Abraham, Vayashkem baboker. He was early to rise. He was an early riser. And the rabbis interpret that in the way that he got up to pray to God, to talk to God. And oftentimes when we see that verb Vayashkem, when he gets up in the morning, he has some sort of communication with God. I mean, the last time that happens is Akedat Yitzchak, when God calls to Abraham to offer Isaac, and Abraham gets up very early the next morning by Ashkem Abraham Baboker and takes Isaac, and they begin their journey to Moriah. So Abraham is the source, according to this point of view, of Shacharit, the morning service. Now we go on, and Rabbi Yossi wants to point out a hook for Mincha, the afternoon service, and Isaac is the source of that. Isaac instituted the afternoon tefillah. In this text, it's about 7 lines down. Isaac instituted the afternoon tefillah, as it said, and Isaac went out to meditate in the field at eventide. We're told in Parshat Chayei Sarah, when Abraham's servant had gone out to find a bride for Isaac, he is on his journey back to Canaan with who's going to marry Isaac? Rebecca. Rebecca is on the camel. They're riding along, and as they are approaching Isaac's tent or encampment, they see Isaac in the field. And the text gives us a Hebrew phrase, suach basadeh. We're not exactly sure what suach means. It could be related to a word we say in Aleinu, mishtachavim, which means bowing. It also is related to the Hebrew word sicha, which means conversation. So he may have been having a conversation with God. And we know from the narrative that this is happening in the late afternoon. So the rabbis derive from that Isaac is davening mincha. I mean, Isaac knows the prayers that will, like Abraham, they have the framework of rabbinic prayers in their minds, and they're saying it at that particular time. And then, of course, the Mariv service, the evening service, is instituted by Jacob. We have the account of Jacob fleeing in Parshat Vayetzi. He's fleeing his home, the home of Isaac and Rebekah, because of the wrath of Esau. He's afraid of being killed, and he comes to what we find out is called Beit El, Beth El, and the text tells us, and he alighted upon the place, Vayifga al hamakom, and the plain meaning seems to suggest that it means alighted upon. The rabbis do a drasha, a homily here, saying that pigi'ah, this root in Vayifga, means prayer. And they draw other proof texts to prove that. So the upshot is, they say Jacob invents Mariv. So there's this ideal template of the Amidah, Shemona Esrei, and it is to be said 3 times a day, and they were said at the appropriate times by each of the Avot, with Abraham contributing Shaarey, Isaac contributing Mincha, and Yaakov contributing Mariv. And from that we learn from Rabbi Yossi that the Amidah is to be recited 3 times a day.
Was there a need by the rabbis to direct this going back to the patriarchs versus just acknowledging that Ezra at his period of time said, because we no longer have the temple, we have this diaspora of everybody coming with different languages coming back with me, I need to formulate a guide, a template, and then direct it. Ezra couldn't be...
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that the desire, but realistically...
If you can, that throughout Jewish history, until this very day, we have a tension between synthesizing the old and the new. We want to be true to the faith of our ancestors and root ourselves in what's been passed down to us, and at the same time we want to innovate and make sure that the tradition that we've inherited is meaningful for us in our generation. And we didn't create that in the 20th or 21st century. This is a phenomenon that's been going on. So here the rabbis are faced with a terrible situation of the temple being destroyed and the Jews dispersed, and they want to continue being Jewish, but they have to do it in a new way. But what better way than to find a hook in not only the Bible, not just the Tanakh, but the Avot, the patriarchs. I mean, the guys that got it all started. So if this can be rooted in Scripture going way back, then there's a legitimacy to it. It's not just some fly-by-night innovation that the new leaders in town, the new sheriff in town is coming up with. It is something that's very much rooted in Jewish culture going way back. All right, but that's one point of view. Remember, there's a dispute on the table here. Remember, Rabbi Yossi says that the tefillot, the Amidahs, are arranged according to the patriarchs. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, no. You remember the temple? there was the morning sacrifice, the afternoon sacrifice, and the evening sacrifice. And tefillah is keneged, it